Welcome back to Thomas and Friends Read Aloud by Miss Jen Reads a Lot, and this one today is James Goes Too Far. It was winter on Sodor. The engines had to work extra hard to steam through the thick snow that lay on the tracks. James was out in the countryside pulling the slow goods train, taking big wagons from one side of the island to the other. Some carried animal feed, some carried tar, some carried bricks. James stopped at a red signal and Percy pulled up beside him. He was carrying the mail. When the signal changed to green, Percy set off in a flash. "Goodbye, James," he whistled. "Huh, it's not fair," grumbled James. "I was here first. Why did the signalman let Percy go first?" His driver explained. "He has to let Percy through because he's pulling the mail train," he said. "Letters and parcels are more important than slow goods." "Humph," said James. Later on, when James stopped for water, Thomas rolled in front of him. "You must let me go first," said Thomas. "I'm a guaranteed connection." "It's not fair," said James. "You engines all have more important jobs than me." "Nonsense," said Thomas. "We all know you're a really useful engine." But that was the problem. James didn't want to be just really useful. He wanted to be important. James got his chance to be important the very next morning. "You must take coal to all the stations for the waiting room fires till the passengers will be warm," said the Fat Controller. "It's a very important job." James was so proud and excited that he tinged from funnel to firebox. "I've got an important job now," he told Gordon. But Gordon just sniffed. "I don't know what's so important about a load of coal." James huffed over to the water tower. Thomas and Percy were waiting, but James didn't want to join the queue. "Come on, make way," he steamed. "I have an important job to do." But Thomas and Percy didn't move. James felt too important to wait with the others, so he didn't. Instead of taking on water, he rushed off to the coaling station. James met Edward at a junction. "I've got such a lot to do," said Edward. "Can you take these flat trucks to the quarry for me?" "No, I can't," said James, as the signal changed, and he hurried off to the coaling station. "I've got a very important job of my own to do." Later on, James set off with the coal trucks. He felt very pleased with himself. "Now I'm important," he chuffed. James went faster and faster, but he had to puff harder and harder. He felt hotter and hotter. Then he had to stop. "What's wrong with me?" asked James. "There's no water in your tank," said the driver. When Edward arrived, James said, "Will you push me to the water tower?" "Sorry, I can't," said Edward, steaming away. "You wouldn't take my trucks to the quarry, so now I'm late and I can't stop. But I'll ask the signalman to send Salty with some water for you." "Why didn't you fill up with water, matey?" asked Salty. "I'm too important to join a queue," said James. "I heard you were too important to help Edward, too," said Salty. "Well, I've got the most important job on the island," said James. "No job is more important than helping another engine," said Salty. Deep down in the boiler, James knew Salty was right. He was on his way again when he saw Diesel, who had broken down. He didn't like Diesel, but when he remembered Salty's words, he stopped to help him. "I'll push you back to the shed," said James. But pushing Diesel, as well as pulling coal trucks, was hard work, and by the time James set off to deliver the coal, the sky was dark and snow was falling. That night, James steamed all over the island delivering coal to the station waiting rooms. Thanks to him, the passengers all had somewhere warm to wait. In the morning, the Fat Controller arrived to see him. He knew that James had run out of water and that he had refused to help Edward. "I'm sorry I put my own job first," said James. But the Fat Controller also knew about James pushing Diesel back to the sheds. "You helped another engine," said the Fat Controller, "and you delivered the coal on time, too. You are a really useful engine, James." James was so proud that he almost burst his boiler. "Thank you, sir," he said. James had learned that being really useful was much better than being important.